Okay, so our next speaker is coming from Dublin. We're super happy that we actually managed to fly in, 5 people from outside of Bulgaria. We found what was our strategy actually to find good speakers. It was mainly scrolling through the websites of the best conferences all over the world that are having speakers that are kind of very prominent in the area of React. So Elizabet was one of our kind of target speakers. And then Radu found a way to kind of reach out, find a contact, get in touch, and she was very kind enough to accept our invite. So give a big round of applause to Elizabet.
Okay, so first of all, it's really great to be here. My first time in Bulgaria and Sofia. And weather is amazing compared with Dublin, so I'm like in heaven. So my name is Elizabet. I like to call myself Miyuki Miyu in the web. I just like Japanese things. And I had this cat, and I wanted to call my cat Miyuki Miyu, but my brother at the time, he wanted to call Mia. So we went for votes, and my brother won the votes, and my cat ended up being called Mia. But for years I said, whatever, I'm going to use this awesome name, Miyuki Miyu. So right now I'm a senior UX designer for a company called Optum, and I'm also co-founder of a music startup called Soundtractor. A little bit about myself. So I was born in Mozambique, in Quilimane, and when I was 3 years old, I moved to Lisbon, Portugal, because my father is Portuguese and my mother from Mozambique. So after some years working in Portugal, when the crisis started, I ended up moving to Dublin. And so in this talk and SVG tell, it's basically about a little SVG. There is a girl, and one day she meets like a React, there is a boy. So the talk will be split in different chapters. The first one I will give you a little introduction about what is an SVG. Then the second part is when the SVG meets React, and then a few examples of things that you can do with SVGs and React. So this is the little SVG. It's a girl, and as you can see, she's really sad. Why? Because she realized that she's different from the other images, and people are not actually using this SVG for creating things. So she said, why people still use PNGs, JPEGs, and they don't use me? So she felt like I'm despised by my family, these sisters, her sisters like the PNGs and JPEGs don't like her because she's different. But why is different? First of all, the main difference about PNG, JPEG, and SVG is because, as you can see, it has all of these code. Basically, the SVG is a text file that can describe lines, curves, and shapes. And then, because of that, you can manipulate with CSS and JavaScript. So basically, all this text that you can see will tell how the image will look like. So it's different, first of all, because it's scalable. So you can have a very small image and scale up, and you won't lose quality. The file size, when you compare with PNGs and create colors, create interactions and animations. So this is my own definition of what is an SVG. It's an image with superpowers. But how can you use the superpowers? Because some people just use an SVG as a background image or as an image, and when you use this way, okay, you won't lose the quality, and the quality will be really great, but if you don't use it inline, you can actually access the properties, and then you can't manipulate with CSS or JavaScript. So you're not actually using the superpowers if you're not using it inline. So, as I said before, the SVG was really sad because she didn't know she has all these superpowers. And one day she meets this little boy called React. And the React says, you know what, little SVG, I'm going to show you that you really have superpowers. And in my world, in the React world, you can actually, I can actually transform you into a component. So into React world, there's two ways of transforming an SVG into a component, and the first one is to import the SVG as a React component, and the second one is you grab the SVG, all that text file code, base XML, and you transform it into JSX. So in the first way of transforming the SVG into a component, you can do this if you use something like create React tab. You just import React component as a logo, for instance, and then the good thing is you don't need to convert into JSX. You won't have a HTTP request because all the code is inline. It's perfect for simple animations and for styling with CSS, and it's really easy in the future. If you change the design, you just have to replace the file. And actually, you can create simple things like this. So you import this image, and then actually all the code you can see like in the DOM, and you can use a library, for instance, like the pop motion, to create this type of animations. But the bad thing about this approach is you have to target the IDs, and you have to know how to do all this DOM manipulation. If you transform into JSX, same as the other approach, you don't have HTTP requests because the code is in line. It's very good for code splitting because you can grab all the SVG code and split in different files. And the good thing is you can make use of the best thing of React, like prop, state, and all the event handlers. But a very bad thing is really complex in the future if you have like an illustration, and because you split it and you split the code, and because you start putting all these state, props, and event handlers, then if you want to replace part of the illustration, let's say, you have to find where is, because it's already the code in a different file, so it's really different to maintain. And now the question is, why should you do this? Why should you transform an SVG into components? And I found two use cases. The first one is when you need to animate the SVG, and the second one is when you want to make it customizable. So let's see like an example. It's a very simple example with React and React Pose. So my goal, I wanted just to create this model slideshow, and I have these two arrows. And the idea was when I click to one of the arrows, I want to move this border with like a fancy animation. So first thing that I did was split, create like the structure, and this is actually, I have these model elements. So the border left and border right is basically an SVG. And then I have the style, so it's style components, and then in the model is where I'm actually importing the border left and the border right components. This is actually how I'm doing like the animation. So you have like the duration, there will be like 400 milliseconds, and then I have like this set state. So when you click something, I will pass left or right as the direction, and then I will say the animate border true, and after 400 milliseconds, the animate border will be false, and I will say, okay, it's left or right. You will understand why I'm doing this. So basically, then I have these two functions, animate left and animate right, and one I'm calling the handle animation a function, and I'm passing the left, and then just a set state to say what is the current slide. This is basically the model JSX, and inside that, as you can see, I have the border left, where I'm passing these props, is animate border true or false, what is the direction left or right, and the duration. And this I'm using basically React Pose, and as you can see, it's a very simple SVG, and it's basically a path, and I'm basically animating these definitions, and you'll see like what I'm doing. So with React Pose, if I'm passing, if the prop is left, this animation will perform. If the prop is right, this animation will perform. And basically, I'm going from the wave reset to wave contracted. As you can see, like I created this with Sketch. It's basically the definitions. And I can show you the demo. It's really simple. So when I click right, it goes right. I can use the keyboard. And it's a very simple thing that you can do with SVG. Yeah, so basically this was the first example of a small thing that you can create. So at this point of the story, as you can see, the little SVG start becoming like happier, saying, oh, I didn't know I could do all of these. And React is, oh, see, I told you. So in this second example that I'm going to show is called Cassette. So when I was living in Lisbon, I had this awesome idea. I consider myself more a designer, but once in my life I wanted to be like an iOS developer. I just thought that I could do that. And I went like to take a course, and at the end of the course I found it so difficult. And for me it was not difficult, the coding part, but I'm really used to create like front-end type of code with CSS. And at that time, with Apple, you have to use the auto layout to create all these iOS apps, and I found it really difficult. So years after, I created like this app, and the idea of the app was to be like a freestyle app because I really like hip hop. So I just wanted to have this cassette tape where you can press play and you will listen to a hip hop loop, and then you press record and you're going to listen, you can record your voice. So I did the app. I didn't like the way I achieved the design. So years after, I found the design on my laptop, and I said, yeah. So maybe 3 years passed, and I realized that at this point you could create using, like for instance, the Chrome or Safari, that you can use the Web Audio API. So you can actually record your voice in the browser. So I thought, okay, maybe I can try to do this with front-end technologies like jQuery or React. My first version was actually with jQuery, so I like jQuery. And my second version was with React. And as you can see, I have this illustration that I created with Sketch. And the first thing that I did, you have to put everything on screen. If you see, I have the play and the pause, one on top of the other, and it's like on purpose, because we're going then to manipulate with CSS and JavaScript. So after that, what I did was to split all the SVG codes I exported with, and I used a plugin to minify the SVG called SVGo. And as you can see, I split all the SVG in different parts, like background, button, center. And this is actually the use of the Web Audio API. And then this is the example how you can, in the end, how the SVG will look like. It's basically a group. And it's very similar to the real SVG, but right now it's converted to JSX. The only difference is same as HTML. Instead of being like font dash family is font family, like written this way. And as you can see, a good thing of this approach is you can actually pass props and make use of all the good things of React. And this is an example of the cassette tape components where you can see some functions like the play and the record, where I'm basically saying what is the state if the audio is playing or if the audio is not playing. And then I can pass the state to the children components. So let's say that the buttons and the center component can see if the cassette is actually playing or is not playing. And this is the example of the center component. It's basically where I have the wheels of the cassette tape. And as you can see, like I'm saying here if it's playing, if it's recording, and if it's playing, I will have this animation, so the cassette, the wheels will rotate. If it's not playing, I will stop the wheel animation. This is the example of the buttons. when you can touch like event handlers. So I have display function, and I'm receiving as a prop. And now we can see the demo. You can actually record the voice. And I will have actually record the voice. And it's pretty good. And I have like this audio visualization. So yesterday I was playing this game, this board game, and I met Mitchell, and he said that he could do a freestyle. So I want to invite him to come on stage. So the idea is, I'm going to do the freestyle in Portuguese, and then he said that you can do freestyle talking about React and Bulgaria. He set the challenge very high, so let's see how it goes. Yeah. Miguel, como é que é? Dama back da casa. Ontem conheci o mídia, agora sabes que pesado, sabes que não importa porque entro, não há stop. Já sabem que a cassete tem, isto não é stop, yeah. É mesmo assim eu estou aqui, como é que é com? Tu sabes que isto é React, not at home. A gente faz isto, sabem bem que é freestyle, wake up loud. Dama back agora mídia, dá design.
I think that's freestyle.
Não, é freestyle.
Ja, komen we weer op de vrouwen die het weer, man is het weer, die had je door het weer, no SVG no net.
Thank you. You actually did it. Whoa. Yeah, that's really cool. So at this point of the story, as you can see now, the little SVG is really happy, like, wow, I can even do hip hop. And the last example is called the React Kawaii. And the two previous examples were more like you can use an illustration and a SVG file, and you can basically do like animations with that. And this is like a use case of something that is customizable. So I was working for a startup for a long time, and at the startup, I'm like designer, developer, always in the middle, and I'm actually doing a lot of things, and then my colleagues from the front-end team, they were always, oh, can you give me a new design for a 404 error page? I need a new design for this and that, and basically I was always using the same type of illustration, and I was just changing a little bit like the mood or the face of the component. So as I can say that as a UI designer, I like always to create simple, usable, and always thinking about to cover different scenarios. So one day I thought, how can I solve this issue of every day opening the same sketch file, just changing one part of the illustration and send to the front-end team. And I said, maybe I can have something like the bootstrap, that you can actually have like the other component, that you can have like different states. So you can have the success, info. I thought, what if I could have like an illustration when I can say what is the state and it's done. So I said that I really like Japanese culture, and I really like Kawaii type of illustration. That Kawaii is basically translated as cute. So, and this is really perfect for the type of illustration that I wanted to create, because anything can be a Kawaii. So if you have like a planet or a browser or an ice cream and you put a cute face on it, you actually have a Kawaii. So the first thing that I did was I created different illustrations. And then with Sketch I exported, I minified with SVG, and then I converted to GSX. And then I said, okay, now I need to create like a face component. And the face component is basically different moods. So you can have the face sad, shocked, happy, blissful, love-struck, excited, and KO. So this is an example of the face component, as you can see, basically you're receiving like a prop called mood. And it's just different if statements. So if the mood is happy, one part of SVG with a happy face will be there. If the face is sad, the part of the face with sad eyes and sad mouth will be in this part of the if statement. So this is the Kawaii component, and the Kawaii component is basically the body. So you can have like the ghost or the planet or the ice cream. In this case we have the planet, and then inside the planet I'm going to receive the face component. So actually one Kawaii component can receive different props, the size, color, and the mood. So this way you can make like the illustration customizable. And if I say the size is 100 pixel, I'm going to replace in the SVG the properties like with the width and the height, and then you can say the color. So every part of SVG where I have the fill, I replace it with that color props. And same for the mood, that is basically for the face component. And then you can have something like this. Planet, you can say the size, you can say the mood, and what's the color. And this is an example how you can actually import into your project. And this, so after I created, I just decided to put an NPM and create like a library for that. And let's see the demo. So you can have like the different moods, different colors, and different size. This is actually my favorite Kawaii component. So I can say, and because this is my almost my last example, so I'm almost finishing. I'm a little bit sad, so you can have like different colors. See? And oh, I really like the cat. It's actually so let's say the cat is happy, and it can be pink. So this is like an example of type of illustrations that you can actually do. And if you work in a big company and every day you have the same type of illustrations, in this case the startup that I was working with, it was like related with cinema. And we are always using the same type of illustration, like tickets, popcorns, and the only thing we were changing was actually the face to happy, sad. So this way, the front-end team, everything they needed a new scenario, like an error page or a success page, they just need to say what's the prop, happy, sad, and adapt the color. So our flow ended up being much faster. And this is right now the state of the SVG. Is really happy because you finally realize that you can do and achieve a lot of things, and React and SVG together, now they are like the BFFs forever, and they can do a lot of things and no one can stop them and beat them. And let's make the web fun again. Just try to create like all of these things. Let's use SVGs and create like animations, customize things, do hip-hop things or rock things, no matter what you want to do. And that's the end of my talk.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. That was the best demo ever. Now we would like to invite you for a quick Q&A session. Maybe some of the other guys want to join, feel free. Okay, warm up first.
Yeah, you sure you don't want to join? You're already too much on the stage?
Oh, no? Okay, so, first of all, sometimes I'm doing presentations, And usually when you're presenting something, we're kind of comparing to the other speakers. In terms of performance, maybe you're doing this just after the talk or something like this, but you can't just go on stage and freestyle. This is basically killing every other talk after it. Because I think singing and rapping and all kind of stuff should be just forbidden on the stage. Because not everyone is able to do it, but yeah. So, yeah. So, I see that most people use it just as icons. They don't really use them for images a lot. What I think is happening, people don't usually do animations, for example. Is there a lack of tools or a lack of knowledge? What's your solution?
I think most of the people, they just don't know about what you can actually do with SVGs. Actually, when I was creating that cassette tape the first time, my idea was how can I achieve this with HTML and CSS. I thought, okay, how can I split these in different images, like the wheels could be different PNGs. So your mind actually goes for HTML, split in different parts the image, how can you make it responsive. But once you find a scenario where, in that case of the cassette tape, I found that scenario that would be really difficult to create with CSS, and actually you can do it, but then I thought, okay, what if I export as an SVG, and I can actually interact with JavaScript, and I can make the play and the pause a button. So I think until you find this type of scenario, you just don't know about it.
What's a good place for people to actually know what SVG can do? Because there's like all those animations which are like properties and all the like the paths and like something you can get out from the metrics. And where is the place where people can learn more about what's possible?
There's actually a lot of good websites where you can read what is possible to do with SVG, but I think to start it's easier if you use a tool like Sketch or Illustrator, and you can actually just export. Actually, maybe the code will be a little bit big compared if you were doing from scratch, but you must be a genius to create that code, for instance, for the cassette tape without software like Sketch. So I think you can just start creating like small ideas, and then you export it, and after that you just try to animate.
What's your process of like, you're first going to Sketch, then React, going back to Sketch? How do you work?
One thing that I do is when you use like a plugin like SVGo to like optimize the file, it ends up like removing all the IDs, and then you just look to the SVG file and you don't know what you're looking into. So I don't use this type of, I don't use the SVGo plugin with Sketch. What I actually do, I really save as an SVG file, and then I go to SVGo online, and you can actually change the properties, and I always leave the IDs. By default, Sketch will, if you call one part, let's say the wheels, the Sketch will create like the wheel ID, and then you can actually see when you look to the code by the IDs, okay, this is the wheel, this is the play. So it's one thing that I always do to leave the IDs so I can, then it's much easier to split the code.
That's smart. I actually had those problems of, okay, what's that about the SVG?
That's really interesting because I actually now realize that the SVG is somehow like a bridge between the designer and the developer. Do you see that you need some kind of because if you're a designer, for sure you could design the SVG in Sketch, for example. But then after that, in order to use it, you actually have to understand HTML, for example. In order to animate it, you probably have to know JavaScript. And I saw that you are a designer / developer. Does that mean that in order to use SVG, for example, you have to have some knowledge about about some design stuff and then some programming, it sounds a little bit complicated.
Yes, but I think if you start like researching, you will end up like learning by yourself. Actually, I don't think you need to know too much, but once you start exporting and if you leave there the IDs, you can start realizing, hey, what is this G? And if you search about it, this is the group, or this is a path, or this is a circle, and you start just understanding how the way SVGs, the XML is done. It's very similar with HTML, and I think it's, as a designer, easy to use.
I don't have any more questions. I just want to go and check the library because I have a lot of 404 pages which will need some cat faces.
Or set, I think. So,
Let's thank you, Elizabeth.